Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, we're going to be painting a very simple landscape using Peach Fuzz, which is Pantone Color of the Year. We're going to show you how to mix it using different reds that you might have in your own color library. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's man in chat tonight, so if you've got questions, you can ask those. We're painting live. Let's get started. Alrighty, I'm using a 12 by 12 inch canvas. I've kind of prepped it a little bit with a very light coat of yellow. I just thought that would be nice shine through for the pinks and peaches that we're going to be putting on top of it. So this is Indian yellow with a lot of white. So just a tiny touch of Indian yellow with a big glob of white. That white also kind of helps. This is a little bit cheaper quality canvas. It's the Fredrix red label, which is kind of their student quality level canvases. They're good quality, but they're just not like primed super smooth. So this kind of that titanium white, a little bit thicker coat really kind of helps give it a good base to be painting on. And for tonight's video, I'm going to be doing the background with a sponge, I think, for most of it. But we can also use a large filbert if you don't have a sponge like this, or even a sea sponge would work. Regular kitchen sponge would probably work okay. Maybe cut in a circle. I don't know. These are really cheap, though. You can get these for like a couple bucks in a pack with some smaller sea sponges and things. They're in my Amazon shop. You can get them on Amazon if you want to look. I think under the acrylic painting supplies. As for brushes, I'm going to show you a few different ways of doing blossoms. So you're going to want like a filbert or this one is a dagger striper. I've got an angle brush and a round brush. So I'm going to show you different ways to do different blossoms, just a simple petal stroke using those 4 types of brushes. So I've got different sizes and things, but they're all going to be basically the same, falling under that category. And I'll mention the brushes as I use them. As for colors, let's go over the colors. I've got burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow oxide, cadmium yellow light, Indian yellow hue. Now here is where we're getting into the reds and oranges. I'm not expecting you to have all of these. I just have, you know, a bunch of different tones of red and orange. And so I wanted to show you how to kind of mix the same basic colors, no matter what kind of red leaning that you have. Your red might be a little bit more on the orange side or the warmer side, or a little bit more on the cool side. And I tried to situate them on my palette as we go along in that order, so you'll kind of know where yours falls if you have any of these colors. All right, let's start going over them. So on the warmest scale, we're going to have cadmium orange. It's not technically a red, but I still consider it kind of in that family because you can mix really nice reds with it. And our color that we're trying to mix is like a peachy orange tone. So this one will be good to have. This one is Pyrrole orange. That's the one that I use mainly now in my palette most of the time. Pyrrole orange and Quinacridone Magenta are the 2 colors that I generally use to mix my reds. So all of these colors can be mostly mixed, or at least close proximities, using just those 2 colors. So don't freak out if you don't have all of these. This one is called light orange. It's a mixable color. It's just already comes this way out of the tube from Golden. Liquitex's version is called light pink, which is very similar. This one is cadmium red light. That's a really common color. It's a good match for Pyrrole orange if you don't have it. Can be easily substituted. Cadmium red medium, another just good basic red medium color that's good to have. This one is a Naphthol red light. It's kind of a newer color to my palette. Very similar in tone to cadmium red. It's actually maybe should be on this side. It's a little bit slightly warmer than cadmium red medium, so it's a little closer to orange. Our warmest color is going to be like in this range, this really hot red orange color. So that's going to be your warmest color. So anything that's kind of going towards it is going to be warmer. Anything going closer to a teal blue is going to be a cooler red. So when I'm saying warmer and cooler, that's what I'm talking about. So this one is probably a little bit closer to orange than Cadmium Red Medium. That's Naphthol Red Light. This one's Naphthol Red Medium, so it's a little bit cooler. This one's Pyrrole Orange, which is all of these 4 colors pretty much can be interchangeable. They're very, very similar. Pyrrole Red. This one is Quinacridone Red. So that's a transparent red with a lot of really nice kind of pinkish undertones. And then this one is Alizarin Crimson, and this one is Quinacridone Magenta. So Alizarin Crimson, especially in the Winsor & Newton line, has a lot of kind of nice, like almost violet tones in it, which is a good replacement for Quinacridone Magenta if you can't find it. But only in this particular brand, the Winsor & Newton Professional, is it closer to Quinacridone Magenta. And then this one is Ultramarine Blue and Unbleached Titanium White. Okay. Hopefully that was a lot of information, but hopefully you've got at least one of these reds. So, and we'll just compare them, and you can kind of see what they each do. And we'll just have fun with it today. So let's start out with let's go ahead and do our background, and then we'll kind of compare those reds a little bit. So let's go ahead and just jump right in and do this background, get it drying. While it's drying, we can talk about the differences between some of these colors. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a palette knife. And since I've got all of these different colors, I'm going to go ahead and just grab up a lot of this orange.
Hey, real quick. Somebody would like to know, where could they get that maroon color?
Maroon?
I guess it's the 2 colors just above the blue, maybe? The 2 paints.
Oh, the Quinacridone Magenta? That one is really easy to find on
like
Blick,
something?
yeah,
Okay.
or Amazon. You can find it.
Okay.
I'm going to mix up a little bit of burnt sienna with that Quinacridone Magenta. That's going to make a rusty orange color, and I'm going to use white with it too, and just mix up a light rusty. This is like burnt orange. The more burnt sienna I add, the more orangey it'll go. So this one is a little bit more pink, but I'll use a little bit of that maybe. And I think I'm just going to leave it here on my palette and dip into it as I need it. Then I'm going to want some yellow tones. And let's go ahead and mix some of our reds. So let's just pick one of these reds here. Let's go ahead and do let's do the Cadmium Red Medium. That'll probably be our most common red that everybody should probably have, or something like it. Mixing that with Yellow Oxide here. And then let's add some white to that. And it's going to give us kind of a nice soft peachy color, a little bit desaturated because of the Yellow Oxide is not such a bright yellow, so it's going to have a little bit more neutral tones in it. So that'll be a nice natural orangey color to dip into. And then I've also got all of these on here. So I don't want to go too much longer with these fresh paint on my canvas because they'll start to dry and then I'll get weird things happening. So I'm just going to use this sponge. I kind of wiped off that darker color on here. I'm going to get some white and just start to, maybe a little bit of both of those, and just start to rub this in. We'll find out pretty quick how this color is. But I think that light orange is actually going to be probably pretty close. I have light orange and I've got that light pink. So the light orange, oops, that's the wrong color. I'm just trying to find the thing. The light orange you can mix with Pyrrole Orange, Bismuth, Band-Aid Yellow, and white. So the Bismuth Band-Aid Yellow could be like Cadmium Yellow Light would be a good substitute. So if you have a light yellow and Pyrrole Orange or Cadmium Red Light and white, you can get this color that is sort of the base color for this background. And I'm leaving just a little bit of that yellow streaking through. I don't want to cover it too solidly. And then let's go ahead and get a little bit of the Unbleached Titanium maybe. Let's get a little bit more of this pinky tone. I want a little bit lighter version of this on here. So, but I do kind of want this color to be sort of mid-tone because we're going to have a lot of white colors going on top. So I don't want it too light. And when you get a lot of paint on your canvas, it doesn't want to add anything more after a certain amount of time. It'll just kind of want to dry. So you just kind of have to watch it and see what is happening. I'm getting a little bit of burnt sienna here, and I'm just kind of adding that up in the upper corner in some places, maybe kind of behind some of our branches, thinking about where we're going to put our branches up and through here. I think I'm just going to do one branch that kind of splits off into different sections. You don't have to go by your photograph. It's just kind of a guide point to let you know kind of where you want to go with your painting. Let's do a little bit of a more warmer yellowish tone. So let's go ahead and get a little bit of yellow and add a little bit of that here and there. And this is our background. Pretty close to what I want. Just a little bit of different colors happening back there, you know. Doesn't have to be anything really dramatic, but this sponge makes it really easy to kind of softly blend in multiple colors. Just don't over blend with it. And I think we're going to be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside and let's go ahead and try to, I don't have the actual Pantone like swatches or anything like that, but I did look up the color. So the Pantone Color, you know, they come out with a new color every year. Oh yes, thank you. And in my palette, the one that I thought was fairly close to it was probably going to be this light orange, or maybe a little bit more, a little bit darker, but fairly similar to this light orange. Okay, so I'm just going to put that up there and we'll kind of shoot for that as our goal, right? Let me show you the difference with the light pink, which is the Liquitex closest version. You can see it's got a lot more pink in it, you know, so this one, maybe the combination of these two is probably closer because I feel like the Peach Fuzz has a little bit of a pink tone. So maybe if I mix those two 50-50, we'll get a color that's a little bit closer to what we want. So maybe that one, that's kind of, and I'm just going to mark this so I don't forget. This plus light orange plus light pink, and I put Liquitex and G for golden, L for Liquitex equals this one. Okay, so that's our, and let me just put Peach Fuzz. Having a notebook like this is really important. Playing with colors like this, it's just a great way to like stretch your skills, learn about the colors that you have in your palette and how they mix and interact. So, and we don't have to like mix this exact color, but we're going to shoot for it, right? And we've got all these different oranges. So if I had cadmium orange as my starting place, this one is much more saturated. You see how bright that color is. So immediately what I can do is just add white to it and see what happens when I just add white, because white will desaturate it somewhat. Okay, so adding a little bit of white to it is going to help a little bit, but it's still going to be a little bit brighter. You see how it's still a little bit, you know, in your face. So to desaturate it, we can do really anything. We can add gray, we can add a brown, we can add a yellow that's not going to tint it too far. So like a yellow oxide that's already desaturated, burnt sienna, burnt umber. Burnt sienna is a little bit warm, so it'll kind of turn it a little bit red. So probably what I would tend to do is add just a tiny touch of like burnt umber and maybe a tiny touch of ultramarine blue. Those two together in 50-50 make a nice gray. Or you could use black and white also to make a gray. But those two together in kind of 50-50 measure. And I just need a tiny, tiny, tiniest little bit of it to influence this color. And maybe a little bit more white. And now we've got a little bit more of a desaturated color. I might have gone a little bit too far, but you can see we're kind of on the right track there. So that's where you can just use a regular orange, get it close, and you're good to go. And you can desaturate it and get all kinds of really nice things with that. Same deal will be with the Pyrrole orange. We can add white to it. I would probably tend to add some of the unbleached titanium to it, because unbleached titanium already is close to this color. It's got burnt umber. Unbleached titanium has burnt sienna and yellow oxide in it mixed with white. So it's already pre-mixed, ready to go. And it's just a nice warm white that I like to use because sometimes I don't want things to go too bright too fast, or too, white can kind of dull the color a little bit. So having this warmer white is nice to have for color mixing, especially if I'm mixing a warmer color. The unbleached titanium does a nice job. All right, so let's go ahead and use a little bit of that with my Pyrrole orange, just those two colors, unbleached titanium. I add a little bit of white in there, but I think unbleached titanium and Pyrrole orange will probably get us close. So let's try that. And that's probably spot on right there. Really close to our Peach Fuzz color. And we can go lighter, add more of less of the unbleached titanium or white, take it any direction we want to go. So these two are Cad orange and white, and this one is plus burnt umber BU and ultramarine blue UB. And then this one is Pyrrole orange plus unbleached titanium UBT. Okay. Just make notes. It's really helpful to have these, and then you can go back. So those would be the first two that I would choose. Making an orange, picking an orange color. It's going to be the easiest way to mix that probably. And then, but any of these other reds are going to work just fine too. This one is probably the closest to Pyrrole orange. So let's go ahead and use the same color we used for that, and use that unbleached titanium with the cadmium red light. And it's going to be a little bit more on the reddish side. So if we want to take it more orange and we've got a red, we would add yellow, right? So pretty simple combination. You're going this way, and we've laid out our palette that way, intentionally, so you can see kind of where these fall. So I'm going to get this warmest yellow, which is the Indian Yellow Hue, add just a tiny touch of that, maybe a little bit more white because it feels a little bit dark. And see where we're at. And if it looks a little bit too desaturated or whatever, then you can add a little bit more of the brighter color, but that's a really nice color. All right. And just do this with each one of them. I don't know if we want to go through all of them, but you get the idea. You get it to, if it gets too pink, then you add more of the yellow to help counteract it. And if it gets too saturated and it looks too bright, then you add a little bit of a neutral color like a burnt umber or burnt sienna, or a even a little tiny touch of blue, which is opposite of orange on the color wheel, will desaturate the color. Okay. I'm gonna stop there just for now, just for time's sake. And if we have more time later, we'll keep on going. But I think I don't want to run out of time today. Mark's got Oak Island to watch.
That little thing you're doing there look like the back of your hand when you're looking at different lipstick colors.
It's true.
That's what it reminded me of.
That is very true.
So if you...
Or testing out my new eyeshadows. I usually put them on my hand too. Yeah. Take pictures of them. That way. All right, so really the rest of this is, we can put whatever color flowers we want. Our flowers are kind of whitish. They've got some yellows in them, tiny bit of green. And
Hey, oh, sorry, real quick, can you do a close-up of your chart that you just did?
yep.
Sorry, somebody just asked and I missed it.
And that was plus white. Cadmium red light plus UBT plus white. TW, really, to be exact. Tidy whitey.
Tidy whitey.
But you get the idea. I mean, they're not exact matches, but we're close enough that you know.
Thank you.
That's, and again, the closer to red you go, the deeper out of the orange range you go, the more yellow you're going to have to add each time to get it to an orange color that will make this tone. But yeah, I think it's fun. I love color mixing. I love making those kind of charts and comparisons. I would suggest doing one of these. And if you don't have one of these already, if you sign up for my newsletter on my website, it'll give you this in a downloadable PDF. And you can download just the completed chart and use it as a reference. Now, you know, mine's from a photograph, and photographs, the colors may be a little bit off. Depending on your monitor or the, you know, what temperature your phone setting is at, you know, if you've got your blue light filter on or whatever. So I would do this yourself. I would take whatever colors you have and fill in a chart like this yourself, so you have you know exactly how your colors are comparing to one another and where they fall on this chart. All of the yellows, oranges, blue, you know, reds, and so on. So that is just, you can see the Naphthol red light that we were using, cadmium red light here, Pyrrole red light, and then the Pyrrole orange here. So there's the cadmium red light and the Pyrrole orange that are on my palette. And you can see that I've like taken them and done a lighter version. So sometimes people will add white to them to do that. I just usually kind of add a little bit of water toward the bottom, and that helps me see is the undertone of that mask tone of the color is going to be sometimes really dark, but then when you lighten it, sometimes you see these really interesting colors. Like this one is nickel azo yellow, and up here it looks kind of a mustardy yellow, but then when you add water to it, you can see how brilliant you get this really vibrant yellow in the undertone. And so sometimes these colors will surprise you, and it's really helpful to see what the undertone color is by lightening it up just a little bit too.
I was thinking, while you're doing that, I could have zoomed in for you so you didn't have to hold that up by your face.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, hold it up.
You're going to give yourself a paper cut.
I can't see anything over
on your nose.
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I was watching a video earlier today, and I was talking to the screen because the lady was using her iPad, and she was trying to zoom in, and so she was physically moving the camera, moving the iPad closer to her canvas, and I'm like, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. I'm just thinking to myself, zoom in. And then she dropped it on her, obviously it fell. So I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Technology is fun. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll just grab a brush. What do I want to use? Let's see. I think I'm going to use this brush. This is a short dagger. Dagger stripers, another name for it. This one is the Aspen. This one is the Umbria from Princeton, both from Princeton. The Aspen is a little bit stiffer bristled brush, and I'm going for a little bit juicier application today, so we'll go ahead and use this. I'm going to use the Burnt Umber, and let's go ahead and add some red. I see a lot of reds in these, so I think I'm going to use some of my magenta. That might go a little bit purple. So I can kind of counteract it by maybe adding some of these warmer reds here. So let's use some of this cadmium red light and just add that. So that's going to be a nice warm brown. That's actually probably burnt sienna that we've just mixed. Went the long way around to get some burnt sienna. It's almost exactly burnt sienna. It's hilarious. Okay, crack myself up. Let's add some ultramarine blue. That'll darken it up a little bit. And so we'll have some kind of a darker brownish color, and I think I'm going to spit on my canvas there, sorry. Let's just use some chalk and kind of map out where we want our branch to go. So I want some kind of heading up this way and going down, and then maybe a secondary branch kind of coming this way. And think about your composition, where you want the eye to go. But I think that'll probably do good. Something like that, sort of up. I kind of always like to have it either that way or this way. Like we could turn it and maybe have it going upward if we wanted to, but I kind of like having it sort of going downward. I don't know. And then we'll have like a cluster of blossoms here, filling this space, kind of a few branching off on their own here, and a few all in here, a few down here, and then a few clusters kind of all gathered in here, maybe some up here. All right, so that'll be kind of our general area of blossomage here. So I'm going to use this brush and just kind of smush it down. And I'm using this one because it'll keep me from getting too precious with my brush strokes. And it goes a pretty long way. A little bit, it'll hold more paint than a liner brush would or a round brush will. Just have to kind of keep it pointed in the direction of your branch. So that's the main thing. And if I get a little off, that's okay. I'm not going to get too fussy with this. This may not be the best one. It's not very easy to control. So I've got that there. So I want to think about where my branches are heading and how they're branching off. And this bush here is kind of doing some pretty abrupt moves. And it's got these little knobby things and things hanging out, you know, off. Yeah, I don't really love this brush for this. I'm going to change it out because I'm not loving it. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This one's not doing it for me. Let's move on to a different one before we get too much farther. All right, so I'm going to grab a 2 round. We'll see if we like that better. It won't go as long, but we'll have more control. And I think I just want, I like the randomness of this, but it was a little too random for me. I wasn't loving the messiness. Like kind of where it was, you know, splaying out and kind of not covering very well. So just gonna do like that. Now there's a lot going on here, and some of these are sticking out and just like going off into splitting off like this and having these really abrupt little moments. So I don't want one coming across from the opposite side right here. So I'm just going to kind of move it over, maybe down here, and have it come down and then maybe come back on itself. That happens a lot when a branch is either coming straight at us or going away from us, because we're seeing those curves in a different way. We're not seeing it from the side, we're seeing it kind of straight on, and it does these more abrupt looking turns that can be really interesting. All right, that looks good. And then let's do another one down here. So maybe we have another moment here where it's coming back and doing something weird. Maybe it's coming this way. Okay, that looks good enough. And then we can, as we add more branches, we can always add more, you know, fill in other, or add more blossoms, I should say. We can fill in more branches as we need them. I'm going to just chunk up that guy right there a little bit. All right, so that looks good. Good enough to start with. We'll let that dry a little bit. Let me go ahead and fill in the butt end of it so it's not like narrowing right there because that looks funky. Make sure your branch is tapering as it goes out. That will just give you the best look. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to cross this over because this looks kind of weird where these two are meeting right here. And I'm probably going to put a big blossom here, so because I don't really like how these two are kind of crossing over right there. It looks a little bit weird. So we'll just fix it by putting a big flower in there. All right, so let's talk about our flower petals for a moment. And go to another page on your thing here and show you the different ways to do flower petals with these different brushes. So I've got the dagger striper. Let's start with that. That's what we'll let this dry off to the side here. Let's just grab one of these pinks we've already got over here that we used our background with. Okay, so this is a dagger striper. It's a little long for this, so probably wouldn't be my first choice, but you can do it. A kind of tapered brush, you can make nice petals. Now, if you wanted to make a large flower, you can kind of press up and get petals that way. Press up. And this brush is not going to be as soft. It's not going to do, maybe I can do it this way even too, where I can get a little, wiggle the back end. But you can see, I can make a fairly decent, 4-petaled flowers with that. With our flowers here, I think we've got 5 petals. So, and they're small. So what I would do with this one and what I would do with my angle brush is just kind of plop it down, tip down, and get some petals this way. This brush is a little too big for this, but you get the idea. You can get some petals. You can get some interesting shapes. It's not going to be too perfect. And that's the thing that I want in my flowers. I want randomness in my blossoms. And so having a brush that's maybe not perfectly round like this, which wouldn't be, my first choice. But if I was traveling and I only had that brush, I could make it work. Let's use the angle brush. You can see it'll be a little bit easier to get a little bit more control. So I'll have a little bit more control. I can get, this one's a little bit smaller. This is a 6 angle bright, 3/4 inch, or 3/8 inch, I mean. Velvet Touch will be even a little bit smaller and a little bit more control, a little bit smaller size bristles, and the bristles are a little bit softer, so they don't fuzz out on you like this one is doing. So I can get, pretty decent looking flower there. And if I had my brush double loaded, we've talked about that before, where you would load a lighter color on half of the brush and a darker color. You can get some, one-stroke flowers that are pretty decent looking. I like the angle brush for using flowers because I can make dots, almost perfectly round little dots, and they make it just by pressing down the tip of the brush. So like for the center of the flower, I tend to like to use the angle brushes because I can do the petals and the centers really easily. So that's a little other thing that I like about this. But then I can also do kind of filbert type brush strokes just by pressing that tip down. And you can see I'm getting a little bit easier shape because it's not as long as that dagger striper. And I can get like these really nicely rounded petals by just pressing the tip down and kind of angling it in towards the center. So that's that one. Then I've got a round brush. The round brush will be, it will depend on how you load it. You can get really thin brush strokes, or you can kind of smush your brush down and try to get like a little bit more filberty shape to it. Filberty, that's a technical term, and kind of press down with it as you paint. Wiggle it a little bit just to kind of splay those bristles out. You can get nice, thicker petals strokes that way. So that's a nice one, but you can see how much time that took, and I had to kind of like really kind of slowly wait for that brush to kind of splay out. So I don't find it to be a particularly fast brush to use, but it does give you a lot of control. And then there's a shorter round. Now I haven't used this one before, but I thought it might work because it's already kind of got a rounded tip. So let's try this one. This one's called the Short Round Pointed from Princeton. And I think that I can just just plop it down. See, I think I might use this one tonight because look at how easy that was. And when I'm doing this many petals and I'm kind of like doing multiple petals and on these little clusters like this, I don't want to be waiting for my brush. I want it just to be able to plop it down and move, you know, move fast. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to show you, I might show you the flat too, but we'll see. The last one I'm going to show you is the Filbert, and this one is kind of your workhorse for flowers. It's kind of the one that you really want. If you're going to be painting a lot of flowers, you're going to want a Filbert, and probably multiple sizes. Now, my favorite one is this one for smaller brush strokes is the Dakota number 2 Filbert. I don't use the Dakota line of the Princeton brushes that often, but it's the only one that I can find this size. They don't really have it. They have other ones in the Velvet Touch, but they're a little too soft. I like this one because it's like firmer bristles, and it really does a good job. So I just plop it down and look at that brush. With the Filbert, it's already rounded, so you don't even have to wait like we did with the round brush for those bristles to splay out. They're already rounded. They're already going to do the job for you. You don't have to do anything. You just set it down with the rounded part out, and you're going to get a beautiful flower really, really easily. So that one's going to be the easiest one to use. First one that I would pick. If you're going to be painting a lot of flowers, I would get this in multiple sizes, the Filbert brushes. And I like the Aspen ones, the next one down. This is the smallest in the Aspen series, is the number 4. So that one I use a lot too. But for this one, we're doing smaller blossoms. So this one, it'll probably be the one that I choose as the number 2.
Okay.
And
real quick, got a question. The dagger brush that you were showing.
Yes.
Is that a newer brush for Princeton?
This one is, I think the dagger stripers have been around for years and years. They're pretty normal. Like,
Okay.
I mean, they're not a new brush. I used to use these for nests. And if you've watched any of my nest videos where I've painted bird's nest, I really like them for nests, for straw, for grasses, things like that, because they do really long, nice lines, very linear and very like natural flowy lines. Like you can paint for days with them, long lines. With the branches, I was finding them not as nice to use. I think I like it when you don't have to worry too much about
Exact.
like being exact. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're maybe not the most precision brush.
Okay.
All right. And then this is a flat brush. So I wanted to show you can still use a flat brush. What you would do is your brush stroke would be a little bit different. You'd kind of just round out that tip. You'd kind of hold it on its end and maybe like plop it down and sort of just pull it a little bit to the side. So you're getting that roundness. You're kind of faking the roundness by pushing your brush in this direction like that and doing that kind of a little bit of a brush stroke. But you can still use the flat brush. And you can also use it on its corner, kind of like we did the angle brush, and it'll do a decent rounded tip just by smushing it down on its side, just on that corner right there. So that's a flat brush. All right, so I'm gonna write that. Oh, I don't even remember what these were anymore. Okay, I think this was round. This was angle. This is Filbert, right? Flat. This was flat. No, this was Filbert. Oh, this was the round. No, this was the angle. This was the round. This was the round short. This was the angle. And then this was the Filbert. Filbert, if I can spell it. That's the one. This is my favorite. Okay? All right, let's move on now. Let's plant some flowers. So I did that because I'm going to move fast. Once I get going here, I don't really stop to think about it too much. I find that it's easier for me to just kind of go with the flow when I'm painting these. So I tend to go kind of fast and don't really stop to explain what I'm doing very much, because otherwise it looks a little bit manufactured, a little fakey. I don't know. I just like when I get in the flow of painting flowers, I just tend to go with it. And So it's easier just to kind of explain what I'm doing. So I'm going to be doing a version of that, but I'm not going to be too precious about what I'm doing. I'm going to grab a filbert that's a little bit larger. I'm just going to do kind of some background color to start with. So our flowers are picking up some of the color in the background. When I did a color match on the images, the color came out to be kind of like a pink that's like this, but with a lot of gray in it. So I'm just going to make a dark gray with a little bit of that pink in it, using the burnt umber and ultramarine blue and kind of 50-50-ish. I might even grab some of this branch color and some of this pink, make it a little bit more purpley toned. And I'm just going to use that. I think that's going to look nice. So kind of not too dark, not quite as dark as my branch, but because these are white, so they're not going to be like dark. They're never going to get kind of dark because they're picking up the colors around them. They're shadowed, but they're not necessarily dark. That's going to be really lovely right there. Just a kind of a darkish color, and I'm just going to create these little clusters here for our flowers to, our blossoms to live on. So I'm going to go ahead and just cover this whole little guy up. I don't really like him at all. Sorry. And if it's not covering, grab a little bit of white. The white will help it go more opaque. I don't mind that it grabbed a little bit of orange when I did it. And we'll just put that in too as we're doing. So this is all we're doing is looking at our darkest color in our photograph and trying to get in our some background for our whites to go on. If you go in straight in with white, it just looks flat. There's not going to be any life to it. And even in whites, there's a lot going on with whites that you might not notice. Your eye is picking up on the lighter values that are on top. Don't necessarily notice that there's darker colors in there unless you really deliberately look for them. So kind of have to get in that habit of just looking for the dark areas of your photographs and seeing what colors you're actually seeing there. Are we seeing, how dark are they? What is the undertone? Is it blue? Is it gray? Is it purple? A lot of times it'll be a cooler color, but not always. And then you'll kind of start with that with acrylics because it's kind of opposite with watercolors. With watercolors, you'd be looking for your light areas and protecting those and not covering them. But with acrylics, we're going to be covering up all of this with our lighter colors. Our lighter colors are opaque, so we don't have to worry about leaving room for them. They're gonna go on top of whatever we put on here. No problem. All right. So let's go ahead and bring that down there. Maybe I don't know, I might just go ahead and cover up that whole branch there and then maybe put it in later whenever we get this in. So I wanted to kind of have a cluster that was sort of large and covering up a good section there. I'm kind of looking also where the eye is leading, where these clusters are leading the eye and making them kind of, move around the canvas. I don't want to have it too full. I'm wanting to go fairly thick with this so that I'm getting kind of nice juicy shapes here. And then if I want on some of these, let me get a little bit of this background peachy color and fade out some of these edges. So get some of this peach and just sort of have some softer edges here. See how that kind of disappears. Some of those, so the difference between that and that one that's so harsh. This will kind of help give us some softer edges. It'll sort of make some of these look sort of farther away, maybe not so in your face. Look at how pretty that is. So let's do that. Let's kind of fuzz out some of these. This will really be important for the whole look of the painting if we have this softer blends of our dark areas into our background. Then we don't have to worry about, look at how pretty that is compared to this. I mean, it's not that this is ugly, it's just that this is more like in your face, and this is a little bit softer, it's a little bit fuzzier, it's a little bit harder to kind of tell what's happening. We have a little bit more room, wiggle room to go places artistically, and we don't have to be stuck with our blossoms being right here. We can put our blossoms out here, and we can leave this fuzziness just as it is, and it'll kind of be maybe, you know, branches that are a little bit farther away maybe. But be sure we're leaving a little bit of the really dark areas, and I may come back in and add back in some areas that are a little bit darker, just in a few places, just kind of in the middle maybe, you know. So some of these are going to have like a darker tone to them here and there. But yeah, I really like that. So I'm going to do the same thing here with these ones and just fuzz out those edges by using some of this background color with this gray, and just using that kind of around the edges to soften it up. Okay, just grabbing that background color or that gray and using my background color. And it doesn't even have to match the background exactly, just close, you know, something similar, and just kind of getting some colors. And maybe I'll do some down here that are just like a little bit darker, but maybe not quite the same. Maybe these are a little bit warmer and not so gray. Maybe we'll do some of that brownish color up in here too. So some of these are a little bit different. Look at how pretty that is. Okay, I like it. And we're the, you know, we're the captains of our painting here. We can tell, we can choose what we add, what we take away, what we want it to look like. If we want it to be more blue, or we want it to be more reddish, or we want to, you know, whatever, we can do that too. We can make this however we want. It's looking a little bit round. You see how it is sort of round. So I've got a little bit, I'm looking at this shape now. I've got this going on. I've got a nice kind of inner area here, comes out here. And I've got a really large open area here, which I may or may not leave. I don't know. And then I've got this. What I may do is bring this out, or put something back here, maybe just like something right here coming off canvas, so that's not the only first thing we see is that branch right there. Maybe there's something right there, and maybe this comes all the way off over here, or not. You know, we can mess with this as we go and decide if we like it or not. I'm just trying to see how I want my composition to flow, what I want to do with that composition, and where I want to lead the eye. So I feel like I need to put something over here just to kind of pull the eye back. There we go. And I might bring that in, I think right there maybe. Might have come out too far right here. Maybe we'll bring that in a little bit right there and not so far out. And that way we've got kind of a little bit more flow. I think I'll change the direction of that branch right there altogether and bring it down a little bit sharper, like right here instead of over here. Like that. We'll see. I might still have a little bit of it over here. But if we want to move it, we can take out this part and use some of that background color. Nothing's set in stone here. And even though we've got this background color, we can mess with it, move things around however we want to. So we may not have an exact match, but that's okay. In fact, I don't really want it to be all matchy-matchy in the background. We've got a lot of movement in it already, so I think that looks a little bit better there. And then we'll bring this down this way and out instead of being so high there. I think that's a little bit better. Having a little bit of separation right here. And maybe this one here is a little bit thicker. Maybe it comes down here, but splits off like that. Okay, I think that's better. I like that. You can see that's kind of looks a little cloudy. We're just going to let that dry. You don't have to try to get it perfect on your first go. You just want to get some opaque color over the top of it, and then we can come back. I'm going to try to get a little bit more white here and just see if I can get over that branch area with a nice thick coat. And then we'll come back in and mess with it once that dries. Try to get it closer to our peachy color that we want. And then we've got some white here too. We removed that branch that was right there, or that cluster. I'll probably do a little bit of this fuzzy stuff here. I don't even remember what I used. I think it was Ultramarine Blue and burnt Umber, burnt Sienna. And a little bit of cadmium red light, I think. Maybe a little bit more blue. Yeah. So we'll do like that. So we've got nice clusters. We've got a nice cluster here. But we've got movement now in and out here. So it's not just static, kind of perfect everywhere. Okay, that looks good. Let's use that. Believe it or not, that looks good. This is going to be one that, you know, may not look good right at first. So you just have to kind of trust that process that will get it looking good in the end. I'm going to make some green, excuse me, using my Ultramarine Blue and my brightest yellow, which is that cadmium yellow light. A little bit of yellow oxide to knock it down a little bit and make it less saturated. It'll already be kind of a less saturated green just because Ultramarine Blue is so purple. It's got a lot of purple in it, and purple and yellow being opposite on the color wheel will already neutralize that green when you mix the two together. If you wanted a vibrant green, you would use a blue that was closer to cyan, like a turquoise phthalo or a phthalo blue green shade, something like that. All right, so I'm going to use that yellow, make a really bright yellowish green, adding unbleached titanium here, and I'm just going to add little bits of that to some of these clusters, sort of thinking about where maybe each cluster is kind of originating on the branch, adding a few little leafy bits to those clusters, sort of towards where they attach to the branch, where those leaves would be. Doesn't have to be on all of them, but just a little touch of that green will go a long way. Okay, that looks good. Trust me, it looks good. Might not look good yet, but we're getting it there. All right, I'm going to let's get some of this. Maybe let's get, what is that red? I can't remember.
Which one?
This one right here. This is cadmium red. This one might be Naphthol red light, I think. Naphthol red light. I've got some cadmium red light here, I think, and some burnt sienna. I don't know. I'm just making a light red.
I'm going back.
Maybe burnt sienna. A little bit of white. A little bit of white goes a long way. I'm trying to use kind of a lightish red so that I don't have to add too much white. I'm just going to kind of add it to my branches.
The second one in from the right is Naphthol red light.
Okay, that one.
And then Cad red.
This is Cad
third
red,
one
and
in.
this one's Naphthol red.
Yes.
Red light. Okay.
Yeah. And then the other one is Ready Red, and the other one below that is Reddish Red or Red.
Ready red. I like it. I like your names.
Thanks.
It's good. Those are technical names.
They make more
They're
sense.
the mark names.
The Naphthol red. I'm like, what the? I'm walking down the street. What's a Naphthol? I have no idea.
No idea.
Fire engine red. Now, I get that. I know what that is. Cherry red. Done. Apple red. Done. Simple. Naphthol. Never seen one in my whole life. Sorry.
It's the chemical name. That's why
Whatever.
it's fancy. It's fine art. The fine art companies do serious names for their paints. You have to be serious. This is a serious business. We can't have fun names.
You have to make it sound expensive.
Exactly. You gotta,
That's it.
yeah, you gotta justify the price.
Snooty patootie red.
Well, you're onto something.
Thank you.
I think that's about right. All right. I'm going to get some magenta. Now you can see the difference. Man, that magenta is bright. So if I wanted to get back to an orange with this one, I would have to add, let's add some yellow, Indian yellow hue. And more Indian yellow hue. And there we go. Now we have an orangish color. And then, see, this is kind of why I like to mix with the magenta, though, because you get a little bit more, like, interesting colors, I feel like. They're not as bright right out of the tube. Now, your pinks will be brighter, but when you mix certain colors with them, let me put this on our color swatching list here. This is still wet. I did that so thick. Still got a big glob of wet paint here, so I can't.
Real quick, a correction on your chart there.
Oops.
The one that you labeled as angle is actually Filbert.
Really?
Yes.
I thought that was the Filbert. Are you sure?
No, those
Because
two
this is
ones.
the round short.
That's round short, Filbert, and then flat. You did two flats.
No, this is the flat one. This is the flat, and I showed it here.
Okay, well, I went
This is
back.
the angle. This is the round short. This was the angle.
I went back.
It's either this one or the round short. This may be the angle. This may be the angle, and this is the round short. But so I think I got those two split up. This was for sure the Filbert one.
Okay, well, I went back and watched it, and the one that you have labeled angled is called Filbert. We'll correct it.
What is this one?
Flat. I don't think you used angle.
I did use the angle. This is the angle.
Okay, number 2 here. Look. Here,
This one
number
was
2,
Filbert?
Number 2 Filbert Dakota is that one right there, and you're going to put it down in that third spot.
Okay, so this one's Filbert. What was this? This was flat?
Hold on, wait.
Here, I'll let you
Yeah.
write it in.
Sorry.
I've got to do this.
Yep.
I'll figure it out later. Thank you. All right. So this one is a little bit more pinky than the background color. With that magenta, makes sense that it would be. But I'm going to use this with white and kind of start to build out some of these petals. Now, I do want to do kind of a mid-tone, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of this purple color that we were using for our background still, and do a kind of a mid-tone color for our blossoms. And I'm going to start to just kind of try to create blossomy shapes here. And just using the tip of that brush, kind of going over some of these dark areas and leaving some of the dark showing. I'm not going to do much detail right now. I'm just kind of trying to get blossom-like shapes. So just kind of using that outer tip of the brush to create some blocking in of shapes that make sense as maybe flowers. And make sure that I leave some of this nice dark color here and there too. Don't want to, in fact, I might get a little bit of this darker and do some lighter colors over the top, but not super light, you know, just like leaving a lot of that darker color showing in, because there are some of them that you see, and especially in this upper corner and down in here, that are still in shadow and kind of stay in shadow, that don't have a lot of light hitting any of the blossoms. And so I want to have some of them that are staying that kind of grayish color. Look at how nice that's looking just by adding just a little bit. See, this is where the magic happens. We've laid the groundwork, and now we're not having to do a lot of work, and we're getting these beautiful flowers starting to show up. We've got all this nice dark undertones in here that we're able to play off against, and these bright colors are going to really pop off the canvas and show up nicely for us. And we're not having to do a ton of work here to get these. Our brains are going to fill in this. I swear your brain does 90% of the work for you here. You get the shape generally right. You look at your flowers, and those clusters are kind of just these little balls of fun. They've got some dark centers to them, and just a few little highlights here and there, and your brain sees it, and they're like flower. You know, you don't have to fill in all the details. And that's the beauty of getting to do this kind of painting. We get to have fun. We get to kind of just, the whole point is just to enjoy, no stress. Get in here, paint some flowers.
And when you're
Don't
daubing there, if people watch, your wrist is twisting, the angle
Right,
that you're
doing-
going at, it's all random. It's not just the same stroke and the same angle.
Right, I'm
every
not
time.
going boom, boom, boom. I'm kind of
Right.
twisting it and turning it. I'm trying to think about the outer petals being towards the outer areas here. So I'm making sure that if I'm having any random brush strokes that are towards the edge, especially, that those are the outer bits are facing out, and then kind of clustering them together towards the middle. They can be kind of in different directions, but especially the ones on the outer edges, I'm trying to kind of angle those in towards the center so that the outer bits are rounded.
And which brush are you using right
This
now?
is just the 4 Filbert still. This
Number
is the
4
one that I was
Filbert.
using
Okay.
before too. I don't really have to go to the smaller brush until I get to my details. And I like using larger brushes. Use the largest brush that you find comfortable. If you're getting to this point, or you're using a smaller canvas and you're like, I can't get the shapes right, or they're looking too big or bulky or blocky or whatever, by all means switch to a smaller brush. But get away with as much as you can with the bigger brushes as can while you can, because it'll just go faster. I find it a little bit easier, and they look a little bit better too. I'm using some of these more intense red now, the orangey red that I mixed up before with, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was one of these cadmium reds, medium, or cadmium red light, with Unbleached Titanium, I think was that one. And then I added Ultramarine Blue to it. So Ultramarine Blue, great color to use with oranges, because it's, again, kind of opposite on the color wheel. It's going to make a really nice darker tone, darken the value without losing any of the intensity of the color. You're getting a really, well, I should say, you're getting a more vibrant color than you would if you just added gray. So you are getting a desaturated color, but it's not as desaturated as it would is if you used gray, or it's just still a little bit more interesting, I think. Okay. Maybe this one we're going to keep kind of darkish. We'll see. I don't know. But just keep on going, doing all of these. You can decide which ones need to be kept darker or not. I think maybe our light's coming from this direction, so maybe this one's getting hit up. These ones are a little bit darker in here. Might add a little bit more blue. Go a little bit more purple with some of these. And maybe like the ones that are sort of underneath are getting a little bit more of the purpley blue. Now, before I was a little bit more of the gray blue. This time I'm using a little bit more of that reddish with it. So these are a little bit more purple-ish. Just using different tones. This is a warmer gray. Not even really gray, but you get the idea. Okay, getting some of that. I'm just going to go and grab these pre-mixed colors. We've already known how to mix them. We can use white with our cadmium orange there if we want to. But just mixing that in with what I had on my brush, which was that kind of purple orange. And I'm going to keep on going here. This is still kind of mid-tone-ish. Maybe a little bit lighter than before. You can see this is kind of a little bit warmer because I'm using that warmer gray for these. And you can set up zones on your, canvas and say all of these under here are going to be a little bit more gray or bluish tones, cooler tones, and these ones are going to be warmer up toward the top where the more sunlight's hitting them, whatever you want to do.
These flowers look like that red bush we got at our yard.
Red bush.
Out there by the fence. We had one that was outside the fence that died, got real big, and then that died, and then we have it over there.
Oh, the plum blossoms, yeah.
Plum blossoms, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, they definitely have that feel. Yeah, those were really pretty. I was sad when they died.
I know.
We still don't know why.
Why? It's this
What happened?
huge bushing tree
Beautiful.
kind of thing, and it was covered with blossoms, and the bees loved it one year, and the next year it was just like dead.
Yep. I think the frost must have gotten it or something. I don't know.
Because
Disease, who knows?
I'm like an expert gardener, so
Right.
couldn't have been anything I did. For sure.
I literally didn't pay attention until it blossomed, and then the rest of the year I ignored it, so. It might have starved. Who knows? All right, just going to go back in here and add just a few little, maybe peeking out limbs, little branches coming out that are. Okay. There we go. Now we go to our smaller brush. This is where we need to be a little bit more strategic about where the Filbert, the two Filbert. So that second one was the Filbert, and
Yes.
that was the flat at the end.
This was.
So I did two flats.
Yeah, you did two flats. Yeah. Yeah, because you're like, oh, I like this one, and you do another one.
Oh, I showed how to do it on its angle. That's
That's
what I
it, yeah.
did the second time. That's right. That's right. Okie doke. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. The yellow to the white will make that peachy color look a little bit more vibrant, and it'll also make our white look a little bit brighter. Just having a little bit of yellow in it. Whiter than just it's kind of bluish tint, believe it or not. White kind of has a slight blue undertone, so does black. So when you add a little bit of yellow, sometimes it can look a little bit more vibrant. All right, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to start to place some blossoms. And not all of them are going to make sense. Some of them are going to be seen from the side. Some of them are, you're only going to see like 2 petals because it's, you know, you're looking at it from the side. So I'm just going to kind of dab a few little areas where I want the highlights to happen. And then every now and then I'm going to do my 5 petal flowers and just kind of crowd them in there, and look at how bright that looks. And I might need another undertone that's more medium. Here, we'll see. This will dry a little bit darker than it looks too. Acrylics dry darker, so I'm going to go pretty bright here at first and see what happens, and then we may end up having to do kind of a mid-tone, or we can glaze over this if it's too bright and everywhere. So, and I don't want to do this everywhere. I just want it to be on some of the petals, and then some of them I'll make a gray that's a little bit kind of closer to this for these ones over here. So I'm not going to do any of these. I'm going to keep this light color sort of in the middle and think about where the light might be hitting it, and just do these blossoms on those areas. So nice. If you guys missed last week's video didn't get a lot of views, but I think it's one of my better videos for like basic. We went over landscape undertones, and I'm telling you, if you like landscapes and you've been wondering why sometimes I start with yellow or sometimes I start with a pink canvas or an orange canvas or whatever, I explain that and go over it really clearly. So I would definitely check that one out. I think it's going to be, you know, sometimes videos don't do that well in the short term, but they like have long-term longevity, you know, more than others. I think that's going to be one of them, that because it's just got some really good basic stuff that I've never actually really taught in the 500 free videos I have on YouTube, believe it or not. So I've talked about it, but I've never really like showed it like I did in that video. So
Yeah, when you show it side by side like that, that was like, okay, that is a huge difference.
right.
You know, because usually, you know, I can be skeptical, and it's like, oh no, she's obviously mixing it different off palette or something. But when you just dip it into the same puddle and paint
Right.
it in 4 different spots and it's 4 different colors, you're like, wait a minute, okay.
Yeah. Now I'm getting in straight up white. Coming back in here and just dabbing in some straight white on top on some of these brightest areas. Look how pretty. I'm really kind of just, you can see I'm kind of like doing dabs, turning it, twisting it. Get them really close together though. These flowers are really crowded in these clusters, so you don't want too much space between these sets, but every now and then leave some of that darker bits here and there. So we want some roundness to these, you know, so we don't want them to be too, if we do the white everywhere, they'll look flat. So kind of pick and choose where you're putting it, but when you do the white, you know, crowd it a little bit, right? It's looking a little bit flat, so I'm going to have to be careful. I'll probably come in with a mid-tone and add some, so like in here for sure. I'm going to do a few little white bits just on the one side, maybe just a couple, and then leave the rest. And same thing down here, just maybe these aren't quite as getting as much sunlight, or a little bit darker down here. Can really affect the pull things forward and push things back just by putting the highlights on these. So these ones now look farther away just because they're a little bit darker. And I might have maybe made all of these too bright. I don't know. We'll see. Let me get a little bit of my Ultramarine Blue, and I think I want to use that for my highlights on my shadow side. The Ultramarine Blue is a really nice violet blue, and I think it's going to look really nice. I like it as a shadow color when you just add white to it. I had a little bit of this pink. It's picking up a little bit of that peach, but I don't care. That's fine. So we can use this on our shadow side. So it's a light color, light in value, but because of that blue, it's going to look more shadowed. We can use a little bit more of it if we want it to look a little bit more shadowy. But look how pretty that is with that peach color. I'm going to add it in some of these areas too down here where I want a little bit. Oh, look how pretty that is. Love it. Love. Just a little touch of blue. It's amazing. It's bringing it all together, isn't it? Okay, so let's use this down here almost exclusively. And some of the lighter tones. I'm not even having to define all of these petals. Your eye is doing the work for us. We are just giving it a hint, nudging it. I think that's a flower. And then your brain's like, oh yeah, it is a flower. That's all we're doing. We like to whisper. Don't have to stress over this. Just get it close. This is fun. It's all it is dots, like literally just dotting the canvas here. Dots in the right color, in the right shape, in the right place, and your brain is like flower. Oh, that's a flower. It's amazing. That's what I love about art. It's just so
and again, the multiple
random sometimes.
And the multiple layers and color tones just gives it that 3D pop effect.
Right. Yeah, but if we went straight in with these lighter tones on top of this peach and didn't have these darker undertones, we wouldn't have any depth to our flowers. We wouldn't have any, form to it. They wouldn't have any form. They would just be flat. So you have to go in and do that work of the ugly stage, putting in the ugly, dark, dirty, shadowy layers, and then now we get to reap the benefit here. These beautiful bright colors on top really pop, make the whole thing come together. Okay, I'm going to come down a little bit lower here. I feel like we're kind of, now I'm just getting straight white here. This is where I really want to say, okay, I have a flower here, and I have a flower here, and I have a flower here. And do a little bit more of that deliberate mark making so that I'm having actual flower shapes show up on some of these. Okay. Looks good. can have some petals falling too. You can do, when you look at these trees, if you've ever stood under one of these trees in the springtime when they're blooming, they have these showering petals that blow out and randomly just kind of falling everywhere in the whole tree. So I like to put like some of them just kind of floating down in space. If you had it on a big canvas, you could have them going and trailing off into different, directions. You can really like make some movement in your painting. If you've got a empty spot and you don't want to put another branch there, just kind of throw some petals and move them around, lead the eye around your canvas. Okay, you get the idea. All right, I think I like it. I might go back in here just a little bit. I feel like that area is a little bit not quite right, so I'm going to get some yellow, Indian Yellow Hue, which was kind of our background color. Oop, I got some Lismer Crimson there. That's all right. Indian Yellow Hue and Alizarin Crimson. That's what that does. And if I wanted a little bit more orangey, maybe I'll use the cadmium red or cadmium yellow light and see what that does. So that's going to make kind of a, yeah, that's getting us there. That's getting us close to that color. Maybe a little bit more pink, but, or, maybe we need to add a little bit more pink, but I wanted kind of a yellowish. I was looking at this color here, and I think I want some of that in here. A little bit more of a yellow tone in just some of these areas here. So now you can come back in and just kind of play with it. If you've got some areas where you want to push the color around a little bit, adjust your borders and boundaries. What we can also do is glaze, which I've got glazing medium out here. I hadn't talked about that, but glaze is a great way to add shadows and things to your painting. So you have to wait for it to dry all the way. I can use it up here in this upper corner though. I'm going to use this burnt sienna and just glaze some of this corner here, and then use a paper towel and just kind of push it around. You can even put the glaze directly on the paper towel. The more paint you use, the more opaque it'll be. If you want it really thin layer, you just add a little bit more glaze. You use a paper towel and just kind of push that paint around, and it sort of just stains the canvas, but it also will tint your clusters. So I'm going to let you take this and dry it, honey, for me, because I want to add the centers of the flowers too, but I think I want to glaze just a few little areas first and show that. So it'll help if I'm going to get a little bit of that ultramarine blue and just add.
And if you needed something to fill in the space, somebody said that they have a hard time understanding how the use of the cool and warm can help push and pull and make
Okay.
a 3D effect.
Okay. I'll do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so your coolest color, if you're talking about cool and warm, on the palette, on the color wheel, your coolest color is cyan. So if you know that, then we know that any blue that's going closer to cyan is going to be a cooler blue. So if you have two blues and you're like, I don't know which one of these is cool and which one is warm, your cooler blue would be something like a phthalo blue, green shade, or a cerulean blue. Your warmer blues, which are going closer to red, are going to be your ultramarine blue and your cobalt blue, something like that. It's important to know that because it matters when you mix greens especially, but it also matters with things like Here, let me try to make this a little bit more. I'm not going to be able to get it all the way to a cyan, but I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this to try to get a little bit more cool. I'm going to add white to it. Oh, not so much yellow that it turns green, but just, there we go, like a turquoisey color. So that's going to be, and cyan obviously is much more vibrant than that, but that's going to be a cooler blue with that more cyan, closer to cyan, than our ultramarine blue with white would be. You see the difference there. This has a lot more reddish tone in it, and it's closer to our oranges than a true cyan would be. And again, this isn't cyan, but you get the idea. And then our warmest colors, hottest colors, well, and I don't really want to add white to it, is going to be somewhere in here. Brilliant hot red. Let me go ahead and get a cyan for you because I feel like I'm not able to show you adequately with that ultramarine blue mixture. So this is phthalo blue. You can see how bright that is. Just getting white here. I'm just gonna make it a little bit more. There we go. So there's our coolest color. Coolest, warmest. This is still cool compared to this. It's just a little bit warmer than this one. Because it's moving on our color wheel. If you look at our color wheel, maybe easier to see it this way. If you look at our color wheel, coolest color, warmest color, opposite on color wheel, right? So here's our ultramarine blue here, somewhere in here. It's still on the cool side of the palette, of the, you know, of your spectrum. And your warmer colors are starting here in violet red and going to green yellow, closest to this sort of. So if you use those colors as your medians, this half is going to be your cool, this half is going to be your warm. All right, so these are the only two colors you really need to know: cyan and hot red, bright orangey red. And then everything else is next to that. And anything in your greens going away from it, going closer to the orange is going to be getting warmer. So this one is cooler than this green. This blue-green is going to be a cooler green than a yellow-green that is closer to the orange than this one is to our true north coolest color. That makes sense? So if you kind of keep in mind those two, it makes understanding your color wheel and how your colors mix a little bit easier, I feel like. And anything that's approaching this coolest color is going to recede the most. So any of these purples, I still feel like I particularly like using purple and ultramarine blue in my mountains, and using like this in my sky. And using this still blue tones makes really cool, beautiful mountain tones. We use this color in our coolest part of our shadows here, this right here, right? So it's still a cool color. It's still very close to these. So it's going to recede. It's going to be a little bit, your mind just kind of sees it and feels it. It feels shadowy. It feels a little bit cooler colors, just feel like they're sort of in shadow. And then these warmer colors, anything that is a mixture of these ones are going to feel a little bit more in your face. They're going to come at you a little bit more just visually. Whenever you want to add like sunlight to your grasses, you always add yellow to your grasses, and these will be brighter. They feel like they're closer to you than the shadowy greens, deeper greens that you might see in a bush that is in shade. I always use a lot of yellow when I'm trying to make my green feel like it's in the sunlight. And then the same thing with this one. We used warmer whites with a lot of that orangey tone. We mixed up colors in this range and even in here. All of these warmer tones that are right in the middle of our warmest color, all of these are going to come at us a little bit more and feel more sunlighty, feel like they're a little bit brighter, get a little bit more sun than the ones in this blue range that we used over here. And the values are not that far different. So values are about how dark or light a color is. And naturally, yellows are going to be lighter value, just in general. So they're going to feel a little bit just brighter, right? This is our value scale. So if we look at, and if you've got one of these and you don't know how to use it, what you do is just hold it kind of over your color and sort of squint your eyes a little bit. And if the color disappears, then you know there's our value for this lightest right there over our white. Can you see how that disappears? But it's even in there too. It kind of disappears, right? But if we get it over here, it's really obvious, the circle. See how there's a really obvious circle there. So we know that this value is darker than this color. And once we line it up and it disappears, then we know this is our value right here to this color. So if we go over here on this light blue here that we did, and we hold it over, make sure we're in the same kind of light too, because that matters. Our light in our room matters. So that blue is probably, where is it? Right here. Okay, that's the one right there. So it's probably like at least one shade darker, maybe 2 shades darker. So it's closer to this. So our lightest values up in here where we were in the sunlight are not only brighter, they're kind of in this range, but the ones that we did in our shadow here, this value, it's still not a shadow value, what I would call like a dark color. It's still in this lighter range of colors, but we don't have to go that light with it. We can get it in here, and that blue is going to feel like it belongs. It feels like this is a highlighted part of this flower, but that it's in shadow. And so that's why I use that cooler color for it. And we can go back in if we want to and add a little bit more white to that ultramarine blue and maybe add some little tips in here that are in a value that's closer to like this. So we can come back in and with that light blue and add and get a little bit more brightness to those blue flowers and give them a little bit more sunlight, but they're not in full sun. These ones are in full sun, these ones are in shadow, and that's why we're not going with a warm color for these ones. We're keeping them in that blue tone that are cooler colors. We could use cyan, we could use purple, we could use, and even in the warm mixes that we did, we have the blues added, a little bit more blue added to some of these purples and pinks just in the shadow area. And then over here, we used a little bit more of the yellow tones in our highlighted area of the blossoms. I hope that made sense. This is definitely a subject that I could talk on for a long time. I also wanted to show the cooler version of the red. So like a red that is a little cooler would be like a magenta or a quinacridone magenta or quinacridone. So it is still in the warm family, but it's closer to it's moving away from our true brightest color, right? All right. All right.
Good.
Cool. I understand, hopefully. Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Getting there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's that. Okay, so these are dry now. So we can go in and add just a few little dabs. Oh, we're almost to 2 hours. We need to get done, don't we? We got Oak Island to watch tonight. All right, I'm going to add burnt umber and burnt sienna. A little bit of magenta and a little bit of ultramarine blue. That's just going to gray it down, make it more of a like a maroon. If we had black, you could have black, but I don't have black out of my palette. So the closest to black I can make is ultramarine blue and burnt umber. That'll make like a true dark, almost black gray. And then adding that to my magenta, I can get kind of a really nice dark pink. And I'm just going to tap in here and find where I want to put these little blossoms in my flowers and just add a few of those. And you should be able to kind of tell, sort of, if you've done enough of the little 5-petaled doohickeys in here, that we can kind of just dab in sort of the center here of some of these shapes. Some of them you just might have to make up one if it's not there, but close enough. Dabbing in just little dots, making little centers of flowers wherever we think there might be a flower. And not all of them are facing us, so we don't have to do this with all of our petals, but just some of them. It'll really kind of help tie the whole thing together. This is really close to our branch color too. So you can use some of this in your branches. I like to, especially if I'm mixing up a new color that I haven't used anywhere else, I like to use it other places. So if you've got this color and it looks a little bit, you know, odd, you can add it to your branches. I'm just doing multiple little dabs here. Look at how nice that looks. I'm just going to take it to the next level. I'm going to finish it off, make it look a little more finished. And I think I want to add a little bit more green and a little bit of like a brighter pink to these centers too. So we'll put some highlights in some of them. So, because this is kind of our darkest value here. It's going to really draw the eye. So if we add a little, just soften it off a little bit by adding a few little highlights to it, I think it'll help kind of blend it in a little bit better to what we've got going on with the whole thing. Really fun. I hope you guys try this. I hope maybe you understand a little bit more about cool and warm colors. Who knows? Maybe you'll try mixing your own Peach Fuzz if you don't have that orange, light orange that I was using for it. Get one of your oranges or one of your reds. Try it. See how close you can get to something. You can download, you know, if you go to Pantone website, they have, or, you know, really just Google it. There's tons of images of this color that you can print out or just have on your computer for reference. See how close you can get to it. I don't know. I like doing that. I think it's fun. Kind of feels like a challenge, you know, like how close can I get to it? And how many colors can I, you know, like how fast can I get to it? And can I get to it with a color like, you know, a red that might not be my first obvious choice, you know? How would I get to it with an unusual color? All right, look at that. Really pretty. Then let's get some more of that white and some of the magenta. That'll be kind of a really nice, like bright pop of pink. And if you want to, you can put some of this magenta color. I think I will Gonna put a little bit of it in some of the petals too, like throw it in just on a few places, you know. Like it's nice to have. It's kind of a cooler, being a little bit more purpley. It's a cooler red, so you can use it maybe in your shadow areas of the flowers too. Maybe if you've got some of these areas and you notice that you don't have some blossoms that are connecting anything, you can maybe use some of this pink to sort of fill in some petals. And then maybe a little bit more of a saturated, brighter, and just use that in the centers, a few of these reddish. You can also use yellow. Some of them might be looking a little bit yellow if they got a lot of sunlight, so I might do a little bit of this pink and then also go in and do a little bit of yellow dabs here and there. It's up to you. Sure, painting, there's all kinds of different colors. If you start to really look at colors, you'll just notice how many colors are out there that we're just not even noticing, you know? It's amazing. So let's do a little bit of white with our yellow. Just, I kind of grab both of those yellows there, and I'll use a little bit of this. Just a bright saturated yellow, and just do a few little dabs of that. Also in some of these, especially the sunny side. Maybe they're getting a little bit of yellow on the pollen sticking out here on their centers. Again, you don't have to do them all that way. Just a few, and then I'm going to get a little bit of that green that we were using before in the leaves and just go back in and add just a few of those leaves back. We've kind of covered up a lot of them. And if we want to get, you know, real technical, we could use like a kind of a cyan blue in our, like a teal green in our shadowy side, you know, like you can carry it all the way into that and do a green that has a little bit more of a turquoisey feel, or some cobalt teal or something in it. All right, I think we're done. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Come back, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it with your friends. Tell your random stranger at the craft store about it.
Or a grocery store, or
exactly. Like, hey, you like art too?
sitting in traffic, you know, have the person roll down their window, tell them about it. You know, whatever.
Let me get some bright white here. And just go in and really dab on just some really bright white here and there. Just be real strategic about where I'm placing it and think about where that light's hitting, and then really give just a few little highlights to a few of these to bring them forward. But I think this has turned out really fun. I've enjoyed this I love doing these little blossom ones. They feel a little bit, I don't know. I'm ready for spring. We're starting to plant our seedlings for here, our zone. We have to start around Valentine's Day, so I'll be setting my tomatoes and all of that, and peppers and flowers and things up in my seed trays.
Yeah.
Soon.
The lettuce and
by Valentine's Day. I am still working on getting my February schedule out, but I did find a really fun landscape that we'll be doing next week. That's got, it's an actual photo from somebody that took here in Arkansas.
mm-hmm.
And I just thought I really liked it. So we're going to paint that next week. It'll be kind of a nod to Valentine's Day. It's not like a true Valentine's, but it's like the trees sort of made a natural little heart shape. So I thought it was kind of fun, be a fun one to do for Valentine's Day coming up. And it'll be early enough that if you want to do it with your Valentine, it would be a good date night one to set up and do, I think. Be pretty easy. I'm going to keep it very simple, so I think it'll be a good beginner one to do. So if you're interested in that, be sure to join us next week for that one. And otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Just adding a little bit of blue to my branches here just to give it another little color. But I didn't like that. What was happening there? All right, there we go. I think I'm happy with that. Oh yeah, shoot. I was gonna shoot. I had you go dry this, and then I realized that I was gonna glaze it, and then I added more blossoms, more white on top. Okay, so I didn't do much with this one. I can do it over here, I think. So for glazing, you can glaze directly on these flowers. So I'm gonna get a little bit of ultramarine blue, not ultramarine, and just glaze a little bit over, and you can see how it'll kind of tint and darken, and you can kind of go in your shadow areas, and you can round out your shapes really easily doing this. I can go in and just kind of add a little bit of it to the underside of some of these clusters and shadow them in immediately. They'll just kind of feel a little bit darker in there. And this is just by using transparent color. It helps if you use a transparent color like ultramarine blue that's already transparent in the bottle. And then you just add glaze to it, or water if you don't have glaze, but glaze really helps because it gives you a little bit extra drying time. And it sticks better than just plain water too. But you can add it in certain places. It just adds a tint of color, and it's a really easy way, especially if you've gone too bright in an area and you're like, oh, I wish that was a little bit darker. Instead of having to go over and repaint that whole section, you can just glaze over it and just tint it back so that it's a little bit darker in some places. And you can see how it's doing there and really nicely add your shadows back in. So try that. Try glazing a little bit after you get done and see, and just use your finger to kind of smudge it out if you get a little too much on there. It's really easy to kind of just push around. You can use water also if you get too much on there and it's not coming off. Just use a little bit of water on your finger and wipe it off. Just make sure your painting is dry before you do it, because if you have wet paint underneath, it'll smudge off your wet paint too. So won't work. All right, there we go. One last thing. I want to splatter. I just remembered I was going to splatter. So really quick. Ooh, super chat. What?
Super chat.
Nice. That was sweet.
Yes.
I just used my kind of whitish color here and my fan brush here with lots of water. Watered down paint. Go.
So I don't have the computer that's got the program that'll pop it up on screen for us tonight, but
okay.
A shout out to Linnea for her super chat.
Linnea?
Linnea, yep.
Thank you, Linnea.
So thank you very much for your support.
Very sweet.
Love it.
All right, there we go. That just adds another little layer of magic. Very, very, very thankful. Thank you, Linnea. Super, super sweet of you to do a super chat. Really appreciate it. And yeah, it keeps electric on, right?
The computer buying parts.
Exactly. Yeah, we're having to buy a new computer. Our computer's starting to fritz out on us, so that'll be a big purchase this year. Last year was the new website. That's up and running. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Thankfulart.com. It shows every single thing that I've been working on. All of my tutorials are on there, and if you are not a patron, you can sign up there really easily. If you want to get see what we're doing for our more premium videos with our patrons. Right now I'm working on this project, which is Animals of Australia. So this is the third week in. We did a deeper dive into drawing and composition, showed them how to digitally alter photos, and then we're going to be going in and putting in all of our animals over several weeks. So that's that, and then this one is the bonus video that we did last week, which is our $5 level. Our $10 level, just to let you know, right now that Animals of Australia I showed you, that's a $10 level. It's changing to 15 on February 1st. So you've got today to today and tomorrow, I think, to sign up if you're interested in that. If you've been thinking about it and aren't sure, the price is going up a little bit. We're just increasing our prices for inflation. But if you sign up for the $10 level, you will get to stay at that level for one whole year.
Yep.
Until February 2025. So just let you know that's an option. And the $5 level will stay the same. The traceables level is going away also. So that $2 level for traceables that we offer with all of our videos, that is also going away. The $5 level will be the brand new entry level for our Patreon page. Just kind of, we haven't done any price increases or any changes to our Patreon page since we started in 2017. So this is just kind of accounting for inflation and for some new directions that we want to go with our Patreon content. So that's...
Somebody asked that crocus painting, is that a beginner class?
It's the bonus video, so they're a little bit longer. I think that one was like a 4.5 hour painting, 4.5 hour painting. So they're not beginner necessarily. Those ones are more intermediate. And then the $10 level, 15 soon to be, is more of the advanced level. And those paintings take 8 to 10 hours or so, usually, or longer sometimes. So the ones we do on Tuesdays are definitely beginners usually, and then the bonus videos like the next step up, and then the challenge videos are the next step up after that. So if you're, pretty confident beginner painter and you're ready for a little bit more of a challenge, those bonus videos are good for that, and then even more challenge for the other ones. But that is one thing that we're going to be doing with that $5 level come this summer. We're going to change the $5 level to a beginner level entry, and we're going to be doing things like we did tonight, where we did color comparisons, or we talk about values, or we talk about composition, or just some of the basics of art that I kind of touch on in these tutorials, but I don't necessarily have a lot of time to do. So we're going to have like lesson plans and a little bit deeper dive into certain subjects, and take you through all of the basics of learning to paint and just some of the fundamentals that you'll want to know, and have like little lessons or little projects that you can do at home to practice certain mastery of certain techniques or certain concepts, art concepts. So that's going to be the new direction that we're going to take that $5 level. The bonus videos are going away in August, and we'll be switching over to a beginner series with our patrons at the $5 level and higher. The higher levels also get all of that content for the same, no extra price. All right. Whew, that was a lot of information. Hopefully you got all that. But anyhow, all that to say, if you are watching on January 30th, 2024, and you have been thinking about signing up for the $10 or the $2 level, I would do that today, because those two are going away and the prices are changing on those. So, all right, that's it. What?
And you have a post on Facebook on all that information, right?
It's on Patreon. So
It's
if
on
they go to
Patreon?
Patreon,
Okay.
it's free posts. You can read it and see all the
Expansive
different
structure.
information
Okay,
about all the
perfect.
changes that are happening on our Patreon page. But yeah, I'm excited because I'm really wanting to. I feel like the beginner, like a deeper dive into beginner fundamentals, is something that I haven't had time for in our Tuesday lessons. And I think those will be something that will be really good for our patron folks. So those who are really serious about like wanting to kind of get a little bit more deeper dive into some fundamental art instruction, will be doing that with the $5 level in the future. It's coming up this summer. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, a lot of information dump at the end there, but hopefully wanted to make sure to warn y'all that if you were looking for that, those Patreon levels are changing. So just wanted to make sure people knew about that ahead of time so they can get in on the discounts if they are interested. Have been thinking about signing up. It'll be a good deal. And there's literally hundreds of tutorials available for our $10 and $5 patrons. So that's part of the reason why we're increasing the price a little bit,
it's been 7 years.
It's inflation too.
It's like been
what was normally $10 is now 13 something. Now after 7 years. So we're just kind of like increasing for inflation and then some, so that we don't have to do this again in 2 years. So.
We've held off as long as we can.
Right.
I mean, we have literally been talking about this weekly for months.
And deliberating over how much was fair and how we want to do it.
The structure of what's offered at the different levels. And
right.
We're confident that this will be the most fair for Angela and for everybody.
Right.
And we really are amazed, and we really appreciate the thousands of people that have supported us over the last 7 years and continue to do it. And we understand,
yes,
but, unfortunately, I can't go out and buy a car for $10,000 anymore.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. So
yeah.
I'm not happy about it, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're trying to structure ourselves too for, just for being able to do new things. And this will help us do that, do new things, do some traveling, bringing different kinds of things. I did a little bit of traveling this spring, and I found that was very reinvigorating. And I do love traveling, and I did a lot more of it pre-COVID and kind of got out of doing it. And now I want to get back into that. So this is kind of helping restructure so that I will have time for that too, and that kind of thing.
Get some inspiration.
Right. And our Tuesday videos on YouTube are not going away, but we may have fewer of them. We may do 3 a month instead of 4 a month, just depending,
We'll see.
Yeah, for now we're going to keep it as is, but eventually we'll probably cut back just a little bit on those two, just so when we do travel, that we'll have time I don't have to worry about trying to do. We cut back on Saturdays a couple of years ago. That helped a ton because we were doing 10 to 12 videos a month for many, many years. And now we're down to about 6 a month. And eventually we're hoping to get down to about 4 to 5 a month, or probably four-ish a month. That's still a lot. Yeah. So
Quality.
Right. Quality, and just
quantity.
be a little bit more deliberate about how I'm delivering the content and things like that, so that you guys get the best.
Very good.
The best you can get.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody on Oak Island.
Oh, yeah. We need to get there. All right, let's do it. Oak Island Watch Party. Go.
Okay, there you go.
We really need to figure out how to do that. That would actually be really fun.
That would be funny.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.